Hi, Shawn Brown here with the West Haven Group, and today I'm speaking with Alie, a commercial realtor with CBRE Vancouver, about the office tower boom currently underway in our city. I'm curious to know why now, why this big, and what the effects might be on the residential real estate market in our city. Let's jump right in. Who are the major developers that are participating right now in this office tower boom downtown?
Yeah, well, there's a large wave of office projects that are under construction right now, and I'd say pretty much almost every major developer in Vancouver is underway on a certain project. Quadreal has a massive redevelopment of the Canada Post building on the east side of downtown. Oxford Properties is building the largest commercial office tower in downtown's history, 1133 Melville, called The Stack. And then we've got PCI Developments doing a project on West Hastings, Reliance Properties doing something on the south side of downtown. So there's a ton of developers that are active in projects, and they're all happening in different areas of downtown. They're not all centralized in the financial district anymore. So lots of changes happening.
Who are the main tenants or the tenant types that are demanding these spaces?
Yeah, in terms of the spaces that are being pre-leased right now, the new construction, there's various interests from anywhere from co-working to international tech to professional services firms. So we've got law firms and accounting firms like Deloitte and Blakes and Ernst & Young that are pre-leasing space in new buildings. And the biggest story in Vancouver has always been around Amazon and the amount of space that they've been pre-leasing. So there's that, and then there's demand driven from co-working as well. WeWork and Spaces have pre-leased a pretty significant amount of space in these new towers.
Do they already have much presence downtown, those co-working spaces?
They do, and they have been increasing the amount that they've had since their entry to market. So pretty much every opportunity of large blocks of space that they could find on the market, they would heavily consider, and oftentimes they would lease. They were the main driver of pre-leasing activity for vacant spaces that would come up.
Interesting. And they've kept those pre-leases even through COVID have sort of remained intact?
Yeah, they haven't leased additional space throughout COVID, but all the leases they've committed to up until are still in place. Yeah.
What proportion of this demand is coming from people who are already downtown and just upgrading their spaces versus brand new companies and jobs coming downtown?
Yeah, it's a good question, because one of the main terms we look at in commercial real estate leasing is net absorption. So if company A has, say, 100,000 square feet in an existing building, and then they go and pre-lease 100,000 square feet in a new building under construction, well, the actual change is still zero. There's no net new absorption. But that's not what's happening with the pre-lease of new construction downtown. So we've got about 2 million square feet that's been pre-leased, and 75% of that is net new absorption. So companies that are growing, companies that are entering the market, expanding in the market. So there's going to be a significant amount of new jobs that could come of this, given there's a net new amount of space that's being occupied.
Okay, and so on that note, approximately how many new jobs will this office tower boom, this current office tower boom, bring to downtown, would we estimate?
Yeah, we can use a pretty simple math equation to get an estimation. For the most part, in terms of density, we like to allocate 175 to 225 square feet per person for office space. So if we look at that compared to 1.5 million square feet of pre-leasing, we can come up with a pretty accurate number of new people that will be needing to work downtown.
Okay, so and I think you had mentioned earlier when I was speaking to you beforehand that about 3.5 million square feet is currently under construction, is that right?
Yeah, just over 3.5 million.
Okay, so that multiplied by, on average, say 200 square foot per person is about 17,000-ish new workers downtown.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Why does it seem like it's sort of almost all of a sudden that this boom happened? If the vacancy rates has been low for quite some time, why does it feel like all of a sudden there was all these renderings coming out and cranes around downtown, et cetera?
Totally, great question. It does kind of feel like it was sudden, but vacancy, like we had a major construction cycle deliver in 2015, so vacancy was actually quite high, and it's just that there was a lot of natural growth from companies. Like in Vancouver, we're not a headquarter market, but we're a small tenant market. A lot of tenants here under 10,000 square feet. But there are some tenants that are over that size range, and we saw a lot of them naturally expand, which created a lot of net new absorption in leased space. So vacancy started to really decrease, because as that expansion was happening naturally and locally, there was no new office space added to market. So as developers saw that trend start to evolve, they began to react and say, well, now it's time to add some more projects to the market. But the thing is with office space is, even when you want to react immediately, there's a long process involved with building an office tower. You have to go from site acquisition to planning and rendering and design and going to the city for potentially a rezone, demolition of an existing building, a building permit. That all takes time, and then let alone, constructing a 30+ story office tower. It can't happen overnight. So it just takes a long time to react to that shift in the market. And we're finally seeing now all the projects that are underway currently were as a result of what the trends they saw a few years ago.
Has COVID affected any of these projects that are currently underway?
All the projects, the office towers that were under construction downtown have all remained on target for their completion date throughout COVID. Developers haven't changed their approach. Everything is kind of moving forward as necessary. And even in existing buildings, landlords weren't adjusting their rates at the beginning because their portfolio was significantly leased. Most of them 90% leased, and rent collections were still high. So tenants were still paying rent. There was the odd company that was going through the rent deferment and whatnot, but for the most part, speaking with major landlords across Canada, we were hearing 95% plus in rent collection. So the real estate shift and what actually was happening and who was affected most by the shift in COVID was the companies that occupy the real estate, as they saw an opportunity to go work from home and sublease their space. So the shift and the change in COVID that we saw was companies reacting and deciding to sublease their space and put it on the market. And we saw a big increase in amount of subleases.
Those subleases hitting the market, did they do so in sort of a floodway, and did the rates go down?
There was definitely a huge influx in subleases coming to the market. The peak of it was in March of 2020, heading on into about midway through June. There were 30 subleases downtown as of Q1 2020, and by the end of Q3, we were nearing 100. So it was quite substantial, and there was no net absorption in that period until as things started to get better and after our first wave of COVID kind of slowed down and more companies started establishing a return to work program. And some of them had lease expiries that were coming up or had expansions underway and were hiring more people. And they were hearing of all these opportunities on the market with subleases going up, and most of them furnished, ready to go, plug and play, and often discounted rents because the companies wanted to get it off their books. So eventually, a lot of them did get absorbed. The nice spaces got absorbed. Yeah.
So that kind of biggest change to the office space with respect to COVID, that ended up mostly getting absorbed and isn't really a thing at this point. It's been mostly sort of dealt with.
I'd say not mostly dealt with, but the nice spaces that have come to market have received a lot of attention, and a lot of them have been getting leased. There are still a huge number of subleases in the market. There's just around 150 today. And again, that's up from 30 when we were around Q1 2020. So they're still out there. There's just a bit more leasing activity now to support it. And we're not seeing the same amount, the same tempo of subleases coming to the market. Yeah, it's slowed down. The tempo is slowed, yeah.
And with respect to the pre-leases that were in place, did anyone pull out, or did many people pull out due to COVID, or are those pre-leases still sort of secure?
I'd point to some example where there was actually an expansion. There was a gaming company that pre-leased over 100,000 square feet in a new tower. And as a reaction to COVID, they actually leased an additional floor. Could have been to account for more staff, could have been to account for a change in their workplace strategy, being less focused around hot desking, or not hot desking, but bench seating, and perhaps some more lounge and common areas. But so no, we've seen quite the opposite in some cases. Aside
from the projects that are currently under development, are there any big or significant projects that you think are coming up even after that?
Yeah, I'd say, like I said, the first wave or the current wave of office projects under construction will kind of complete in 2023, end of 2023. And there's already another wave that's planned or being in the proposal process for afterwards. I'd say if you look on the Cole Harbour side and staying in the financial district, what Reliance Properties is doing at 1166 West Pender is going to be quite impressive. They've done a great job at reacting to the new trends around COVID and health and wellness of the tenants. So they've incorporated a lot into their building to appeal to tenants who are looking for that. And then we talked a bit about the expansion of the east side of the downtown core, where 400 West Georgia is being built, where the Canada Post building is being redeveloped. And West Bank has a project on 720 Beatty Street with large floor plates, which is right by the stadium. It's well situated in between two transit lines. I think as we continue to see an expansion of the east side of downtown, that project will get a lot of attention.
With respect to all this demand to be in Vancouver by these tenants, what is driving that demand?
So I'd say most of the interest in terms of why Vancouver, I like to just point out the window and explain our geography and say, this is why a lot of people want to live here and want to work here, because it's an amazing place to be. But then there's also the hard facts, which is the fact that, if we surveyed 50 of the top office markets across North America, and if you look at Vancouver, we're at the very bottom of that list in terms of office occupancy cost and total labor cost. So if you're a large international tech firm and you're trying to find out where you're going to start hiring people and setting up office space, you're looking at Vancouver, because you can do it here for cheap. You're in the same time zone as a lot of your other office space in San Francisco, in Seattle, in California, and you're getting access to talent at a significantly cheaper salary. And we have good talent here. We've got great programs. UBC is an internationally recognized university. And then we have specialized programs at BCIT and Center for Digital Media of BC, NYIT, that provide specialized education to these positions that a lot of the companies are hiring for. So it's just a unique opportunity for companies across the world to kind of capitalize on a very beautiful place, which also makes sense on a cost level.
With this influx of downtown jobs we've discussed, what are the main types of jobs that it will bring? Are they executive level jobs in a big way, or more so different types of jobs based on what you've seen so far?
Yeah, most of the executive and C-suite level type positions will remain in the headquarter markets that these companies that are leasing space here come from the international firms, that being said. So a lot of the positions here are going to be more the mid-range pay, the software developers, the mid-level, senior-level managers, but for the most part, it won't be executives that are coming here. It's going to be the mid-level salary pay, satellite office workforce, yeah.
How has the working from home movement changed the way thus far businesses are going to be conducting their business? And
right.
What other changes do you foresee happening?
Yeah, so it's made a lot of businesses, and in some instances it's forced a lot of businesses to become more digital. A lot of the tech companies already had a lot of these systems in place, but some professional services companies and companies that are a bit more old school, they didn't know what Zoom was, right? They didn't know what Slack was. They didn't know what these systems were. So the positive side is it's forced them to adapt to the technologies that are readily available to us every day. And it's given them the opportunity to leverage those. And in terms of what's going to happen moving forward, in terms of returning to work, at first it was all about returning to work safely, right? There was we were in a global pandemic. We were forced to work from home out of pure safety. It was not safe to go into office space. It was not safe to go into retail stores. We had too much to consider. So that was the main thing. And then moving forward, it's going to be, as vaccinations continue to roll out and the population gets more healthy, it's going to be a question of what do employees want, right? Do the employees want to be in the office? Do they want to work from home? Do they want to have a flex of the two? And what we're seeing right now, and over the last few weeks, we've seen a wave of different workplace reopening strategies come through from large companies who, for the most part, are implementing a flexible approach, whether it be work from the office 3 days a week and work from home 2 days a week, or a hot desk system or whatnot. But no question, we as humans crave human interaction, and we want to be around other people. We want to be in the center of everything, and we want to collaborate with others. So the technologies in place have allowed us to work remotely productively, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of benefit that comes into being in the office and showing your face, learning from senior leaders in your field, and just collaborating and getting to know your teammates, because there's a lot of value to that still.
So for many of those people out there who think, oh my goodness, this is a permanent change, this permanent working from home, that is the way of the future, based on what you've seen with many of your clients or maybe dialogue with many of your colleagues, that might be a bit of an extreme view, and likely something more in the middle is probably where we might see the dust settle.
I would say so. I'd say for a small company, having no need for an office is just a cost reduction technique. When you're just starting out and you're scaling, it's, you want to save every dollar you can and invest it into your business. And, there are indirect advantages to having office space as well, but for the most part, they see it as a cost. And if they can reduce that cost in the short term, especially while we're in a pandemic, they'll do that, right? But moving forward, we've seen some companies think, like they have to compete with big companies around them. So if you're a startup and you've recently raised money and you're trying to hire the top talent, sometimes it can be difficult to do that with a remote work culture. You want to create a reason for people to choose your company. So we've had some scenarios where companies are actually leasing more space than needed, not necessarily for workstations, but just so that they can come in and give their employees a place to feel like they have a home with their coworkers, right? So more lounge areas, whether it be beer on tap, snacks, ping pong tables, that kind of thing. Companies more than ever are going to need to use their workspace, not as workspace, but a place for employees to come in, talk to each other, collaborate, and feel like they have somewhere to be.
To wrap up, I'm curious to get your insights as to what you feel the short-term and long-term vision is for commercial real estate in Vancouver.
Yeah, definitely. Everyone's curious about what the future holds. I'd say, kind of in the short term, it's really going to be a question of what is our new normal and how effectively and how soon can we return to that, right? And what are the strategies that companies and cities are going to incorporate to adapt to some of the new trends and behaviors that people have adapted to as a result of the pandemic, right? So in the short term, we'll start to see what those are and how those evolve. And then in the long term, I think it's going to be a huge emphasis on creating an experience. So whether it's retail and trying to attract your customer base, or if it's office and you want people to come into your space, creating an experience and a reason to come in is going to be huge. So I think companies are going to be emphasizing that more than ever. Developers of buildings as well. I think you're going to see a lot more amenity space, a lot more tenant lounges, a lot more outdoor space, rooftop patios, courtyards, the kind of thing where people can go and socialize, because I think a lot of people miss that and they can't wait to go back to that. So look for a lot of that, a huge emphasis on creating an experience for your people, and real estate will find various ways to make that happen. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time today. Very much appreciated.
Yeah, no, absolutely a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Well, that was certainly an insightful discussion. My three biggest takeaways pertaining to residential real estate are: number one, the big influx in new jobs coming, 17,500, or a 12% increase. Number two, that most of those positions are middle range positions. And number three, despite the fact that we are currently in an office tower boom, there's already another one in the works that will follow it. So who knows, maybe at one point in the near future, we'll be on a similar level to that of Toronto. Thank you for watching, and please reach out should you have any questions pertaining to anything real estate. Signing off, Shawn Brown, have a great day.